It is Inauguration Day for Donald Trump as he stands as the 47th President of the United States of America. And I have a few talking points and some questions that I want to get into about what the next 4 years will be, what they will mean, and then I want to end this video with a talking point that should absolutely look, no matter what side of things that you stand on. If you consider yourself a liberal here, though, this has to be absolutely heart-wrenching. The last thing that I want to talk about in this video, because I want to build up to that point. And here's where I think we need to start. Donald Trump and Ronald Reagan. There's a lot of similarities between the way that Donald Trump has sort of fashioned his first term as presidency and really sort of buckled down for his second run at president. And I don't think that it is outside of the box to be considering that perhaps an appropriate slogan for this, his second term, would be Morning in America. Just like Ronald Reagan's second term, he ran under the slogan Morning in America. There is a lot of hope for this second term. There are a lot of big brains that have all of a sudden been activated towards Politico. There are a lot of hardworking and industrious people that have been brought to Washington for this, and that's kind of where I'm going to end this video. Just a little bit of foreshadowing there. But there is an air of change about this administration. Whether you support it or not, you cannot deny that. But everyone, I think even the most ardent of Donald Trump supporters would be, or at least should be, willing to concede that in Donald Trump's first term, his first 4 years in office, in fact, definitely his first year in office especially, he did not understand the nature or size of the beast that he would be attempting to slay. And he was beset by the John Boltons of the world. He was besieged, if you will, by the Rhino establishment, by the slush fund sentinels of the world. These things, to the best of their ability, took down anything that Donald Trump was trying to. So there was the absolute sort of combat that Donald Trump had to do in his first term against leftism and people who were outright fighting against him. And then there was that slithering nature of the serpent, which was the Rhino type of establishment, which were trying to slowly bleed any momentum that Donald Trump could get going, because these people, they're there for them. They're not there to serve. They're not there to be politicians. They're there to be what politicians have become, right? So if you go back to those very first few presidents that the United States had, they all had jobs. They were all doing other things. They were not career politicians. You go back and perhaps the wildest president that the United States ever had, Andrew Jackson, was, I believe at the time he was elected, was the westernmost president, right? The president who came from the furthest west in the United States territory at the time of his election that had ever been elected. Basically, at that point in time, what you kind of did was you went town to town and just made up what you were. So you would go to a new town and say, yeah, no, I'm a lawyer. Yeah, there's no degrees for this. Not in the Wild West. There's no degrees for this. I'm a lawyer. I'm a businessman. I am whatever it is that I claim to be. And Andrew Jackson claimed to be some pretty wild things. If you haven't read a biography of Andrew Jackson, I cannot implore you enough. The amount of men that Andrew Jackson shot. So there's one wild story, and I know this is absolutely a sidebar here, but maybe not. If we're getting into the Trump that we're being led to believe might be in the White House, He was not president. I believe Thomas Jefferson was president. And he was fighting the British as they were trying to invade from the South, or maybe it was the French as they were trying to invade from the South. Whatever it was, he was fighting them, and he was fighting Native Americans, and he was fighting this, and he was fighting that. And he followed, I believe, some English ship that had attacked him into Florida. Florida did not belong to the United States. He caught the ship, and he killed them. And then he hung a couple of Frenchmen as well, just to say he did it. And almost, if memory serves me correctly, it's been 20 years since I've read the biography, but almost caused a war just because he said, no, I'm going to kill these guys. I'm going to go ahead and catch them and kill them. And he did that. But where was I? Oh, yeah, they all had jobs. The original presidents all had jobs. They did things. They knew things. They were different places. All of these people that have been president for my lifetime and going back, I mean, so the president right before I was born was Reagan. And since I was born, literally, I believe all of the presidents have just been lawyers / politicians, career politicians. And I don't know how far back before that, really. I mean, I'm assuming pretty much forever, pretty much since the 1900s. So Donald Trump coming along and being different than that is a threat to the establishment in and of the fact that he looks at things with a different pair of eyes. One of the things that is so disastrous about our government, here's what I can tell you. I've worked since I was 17, full-time basically. I worked full-time hours my senior year in high school. Sometimes I've been a good employee. There have been times where I have been a bad employee. When you're a bad employee and your boss walks in, you scurry like a cockroach, right? You try to, I was supposed to be busy. I'm busy. I'm doing things. Guys, look, I can't get this done on my own, right? That's what we see in Washington because there's someone there that is not supposed to be there. The boss came back early. So you see this scattering of the cockroaches. This time, however, Donald Trump has surrounded himself with a lot of people who want, above all else, seemingly at least, if we're to take them at face value, and they're not politicians, so I think we're left to at least give them the benefit of the doubt until he surrounded himself with a lot of people that want, above all else, change for success. Not change for the sake of change. Not change in a partisan way. They seemingly have ideas on how things might go differently. And in this, one of the things that I am most excited about is deregulation. The amount of productivity that could be wrought through deregulation. Look, so deregulation is largely disinflationary, deflationary. There was a study done on the airlines in the 70s. And what they found was that when regulations were reduced, prices ended up going down up to 30%. Because regulations were reduced, you didn't have to do all this stuff that cost all this money, you didn't have to whatever. Still safe, you had all the regulations that mattered, just not 2 and 3 of the same ones. We haven't started having planes fall out of the sky since the 70s. There was a tweet from Alyssa Farah Griffin, who I believe is one of the women that's on The View a lot. She tweeted that deregulation would affect the average household to the tune of $3,100 per year. Now, it might sound like that's not a lot. Yes, it is. Here's the thing. You take that $3,100, you divide it by 12 months in a year. You invest that and pretend that you just get the market average return of 10% interest on it. You put it in a mutual fund or an ETF, as I guess they're now called, right? You put it in an ETF, you get 10% every year on it. You do that for 20 years, and at the end of that 20 years, you have $179,753. It's a lot of money. That's a lot of money that just by deregulating the average American household would have at the end of 20 years. So I say 20 years. I'm 39, 59, right? That's Pam Bondi's age. So just putting it out there, Pam. By that time, 20 years, you have a substantial amount of money. Not all the money in the world, and inflation will maybe still go up, meaning that $179,000 by the time the 20 years is here will buy less, but still, that's $179,000, basically $180,000 that all of us should have that we don't, because the government is grifting off of us at an insane level simply to have regulations that don't do anything, don't matter, and cost money. However, we might also be entering a world of hyper deflation. You look at things, AI, the cloud, autonomy, humanoid robots. There's several other things. The compute. All of these things are at base level deflationary, meaning that it will take less to do more. We could be entering a world of hyperabundance. I'm a literature guy. I run a channel on YouTube called Stripped Cover Lit where I talk about literature. One of the most entertaining ideas to me is an idea from Jacques Derrida that is called hauntology. It is summarized as the future has been canceled. I mean, you think back 20 years, people were wearing kind of the same clothes. But if you go back 20 years to 2000, 2005, and from 2005, you think back 20 years, 1985, that style looked very different. The movies that were made looked very different. The novels being written were very different. All of these things were very different. But we've gotten to this point where seemingly culture has frozen. There's a lot of different explanations for this. Peter Thiel and Eric Weinstein think that it has to do with the fact that so much of the brain power that has been active has been in the bits and not the atoms. People who are innovating in computer space, but not real life. Fair enough. Whatever it is, we might be entering a place for the first time in my life where we don't kind of know what tomorrow looks like. Imagine your workplace, wherever it is that you work. Imagine your workplace, but there's 5 humanoid robots running around. Humanoid robots that are capable of anything that the average person at your job is capable of doing. Just imagine it. What does your workday look like? I am of the opinion that at first, humanoid robots will be largely additive to the economy. They're not going to take jobs. They're just going to be jobs, right? If you put a humanoid robot in my workplace, we would have more labor done. We wouldn't be able to replace anyone because we're constantly kind of behind on things that have to get done. I think largely that is the American experience right now, being slightly behind in the workplace. The second big thing is that I think that this administration is going to be undoubtedly America first. The only other president in my lifetime that seemed that way at the time was Bill Clinton. And I learned later, maybe other people knew at the time, I did not. Bill Clinton had all of the initiatives for getting people in houses. Seemed like a good idea. Turned out that's what caused 2008. That big financial crash was because of a lot of the things that Bill Clinton put in place with home buyers. I did not know at the time Bill Clinton was also responsible for a large deal of the exportation of jobs. Now, I know that. I think this is a revelation to many people of my age. So we've never had in my lifetime a president that I can undoubtedly say was America first, that was looking inside the country. And I think you can say a lot of things about Trump. I don't think you can say he's not America first. Anyone who is willing to put up with the torrent of BS that was obviously going to come his way when he said, I don't know, maybe we'll invade Greenland. He knew that was going to cause an S show, right? There's no way that was going to go over well. He knew that. He said it anyway. Why? Because there is a bigger picture at play. And when we talk about bigger picture at play, we're talking about the future. And this is where I want to get to the point that should absolutely cause the liberal side of things, the Democrat side of things, shame. They should be absolutely ashamed of this. So first, let me just name the guy who does not have a comparison in the Trump or in the Biden administration. Vivek Ramaswamy. He's heading Doge. He and Elon Musk. Elon Musk is not ancient. Elon Musk is entering what is kind of known as your prime for CEOs. Vivek Ramaswamy's 39. Vivek is my age. Okay? But that's kind of not a fair comparison because Doge is unique to the Donald Trump administration. Now, unique to the Donald Trump administration in cutting costs so that the future is tenable, but that's not there in the Biden administration. So I don't have something to which I can compare that name. I do for J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance is 40. Donald Trump's, so much was made of the age of Donald Trump. Oh, you can't say all of these things about Biden's age. He's the same age as Trump. First off, not quite. Second, there's a big difference in different people for different ages. There's a big difference in different people for the same age. Two different people can be 40 and one's already lost their mind. So I'm not going to have that argument. But we won't make that argument for Donald Trump. We will take J.D. Vance, his vice president. J.D. Vance is 40 years old. Joe Biden's vice president, Kamala Harris, 60. 20 years difference. The Democrats are always saying we need to be we need a change of leadership. We need young people in the government. Okay, Donald Trump is giving you that with his vice president who's only 40 years old. Should J.D. Vance run for president at the conclusion of Donald Trump's second term, maybe he runs for a third term. Should J.D. Vance run next time, he'll be 44. What about the Secretary of Defense? Pete Hegseth, who I think gets the nod, I think he will be confirmed, is 44 years old. He's replacing, by the way, Lloyd Austin, 71. The Democrats are all about a youth movement, aren't they? The Democrats are all about the new face of government, aren't they? What about the Director of National Intelligence? Tulsi Gabbard, right? Tulsi Gabbard, 43. Replacing Avril Haines, 55. 12 years, not the biggest leap, but it is a leap. It is 4 presidential terms of difference in age. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, 53, replacing Anthony Blinken, 62. This one shocked me. I thought Anthony Blinken was way older than that. What about the Secretary of Treasury? Scott Bessent. He's an older guy, 63. He's replacing Janet Yellen, 78. One last one here. Attorney General. Pam Bondi, heart of my heart, love of my love, Pam Bondi. That woman is 59. Had no idea that woman was 59 years old. Replacing Merrick Garland, 72. So the Democrats want to say, and I don't consider myself necessarily a Republican, right? I say all this, and I'm not even necessarily a Republican. I don't believe everything in lockstep with any party. I think that degrades you I think that degrades your intellect, to be quite honest. To say that I am X, so I have to think Y, is not a good thing. But the Democrats want to say that they are for the new face of government. Your administration, the Biden administration, it's a bunch of 70-year-olds. That is all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other people who might be interested in these same things. And if you find yourself here by chance but not design, consider hitting the subscribe button, because this is the kind of thing that I talk about on this channel every once in a while.